Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Fluffies, written by hixchem. Spine Leader Leaf pulled his armored helmet over his quilled head, pressing spines down along his back. The visor darkened as the connections to his suit were secured, obscuring his face from outside view. He readied himself as the breaching pod drifted from the safety of the heavy battlecruiser towards the largest fragment of a shattered outpost. Damned harvesters, he thought, tightening his grip on his plasma rifle. His short claws tapped rhythmically against the safety, counting the seconds until the pod would pierce the skin of the station. There had been several of these attacks in recent weeks, and each station sent out distress calls as they fell. This was the latest, and also the only one that still had harvester ships attached. Leaf scanned the surface of the station as he floated by, noting the positions of several harvester craft along his planned path. Something about them seemed off in his mind, though it took him nearly a minute to place the problem. Their ships are still here, but there's no other activity. The realization washed over him. Whatever the harvesters had encountered on the station must have been devastating. There were no visible holes where any of the ships might have escaped. Leaf frowned at his helmet, then reached up and tapped a claw on the panel on the side. Spine Leader, switching to full comms, preparing to breach. Are we getting any radio chatter on any known harvester frequencies? Negative, SL. The night is quiet, came the quick reply in his ear. I am seeing a lot of Harvey ships still embedded. Are we sure that there are no signals? Confirming, SL. We have no signals of any known frequencies. You're seeing something we're not, boss. Just a feeling. My spines are twitching a bit on this one. I'll keep comms open for the duration. If there are any live Harveys on my feed, you are ordered to open fire on my position. Slag the station. Sir, that'll kill you. You know the rules. Dead harvesters are more important than any of us. Bracing. Leaf wrapped his free hand around a nearby brace bar, then tensed himself against it as the pod tore into the side of the station. The access door before him popped outwards with a hiss, and he raised his plasma rifle into position. Station breached, making entry. His footsteps were slow, steady, and quiet as he made his way down the corridor. Protocol dictated he first find the security office of the station and connect an uplink. He followed the signs on the wall, augmented by his helmet's heads-up display. Methodically, he checked doors and corners as he moved, though nothing jumped out at him. Not surprisingly, there was a considerable amount of carnage littering the corridors of the station. This was a relatively robust outpost that at the confluence of several medium-sized trade routes. His HUD rapidly identified and documented over a dozen species as he went. A few identifications were given lower confidence ratings based on the magnitude of damage the bodies had sustained. But protocols were protocols, and each of their respective governing bodies would need to be notified when this was over. He stopped outside the security office door. It was mostly closed, but there was a faint shimmer of light coming through. Without moving his feet, Leaf cranes his head slightly to peek through the crack in the door frame. Several monitors were flickering, most of them with little more than static. One of them appeared to still have some functionality, though. He took a steadying breath, readied his rifle, and shoved the door open, swinging the barrel back and forth. He checked rapidly for any signs of an ambush. None came. A minute later, satisfied that the room was indeed empty, he pulled a small device out of his shoulder pocket and plugged it into the nearest data port he could find. Security uplink engaged. Begin data collection and analysis while I check the rest of the station. On it, SL. We'll let you know if we see anything you need to know about. Leaf stepped back out of the security office and continued down the main corridor. He entered a central plaza, a place that would ordinarily be filled with hundreds of beings from dozens of worlds, all buying, selling, and trading, and generally living their lives. He recognized a few common establishments here and there in the wreckage. One food vendor that prided itself on maximum flavor and calorie density, and had a number of smiling cartoon versions of different galactic member species, seemed considerably less inviting, with splashes of different colors of blood all over it. Leaf stood in the plaza and slowly turned. letting the HUD catalogue as many individuals as it could. While this was by no means a desirable part of his job, there was a solemn acceptance amongst this in his unit that the dead should be made known to their people. After a moment, the HUD flashed red and outlined a particular body in the mist. Red line, spine leader will engage. Offensive armor mode requested. Half a second later, panels of his armor shifted and slid along their axes, turning his hardened shell into a sharpened array of razor-edged spines running the length of his arms, legs, and back. He stepped closer to the red outline. His HUD flashed a proximity warning, but the shape didn't move. Slowly, he advanced until the outline became unmistakable. Most of the harvester was lying on the ground before him, its limbs bent and broken in gruesome ways, and half of its head crushed into the deck plating. Dead Harvey, can you confirm visuals? Yeah. Yes, sir. SL, confirmed. Visual of dead harvester. Anything on the data uplinks yet that might explain this? Leaf's display blinked to alert him to the awaiting video. He brought it up beside the smashed harvester corpse. The video included several angles of harvester breach ships opening up into the main plaza, followed quickly by immediate bloodshed and violence. Then, as usual, the harvesters began to disperse along various corridors. From one corridor, several harvesters suddenly came running back, followed quickly by a mangled corpse hurtling through the air and splattering against the ground where Leaf stood. My, the spines! Is there any information on the kind of dangerous megafauna of the station? Check the black market investigation logs. Nothing at all, SL. Whatever that was, it wasn't, Wait a minute. Don't have to a lot of time here. Well, it's odd. There's a registered entry for something from a Class 12 Deathworld, but no listing of classification as predator or megafauna or anything. It just says, assigned to school? Leaf glanced at the corridor wall where the corpse had been flung from. The word for school was embossed on the wall in several languages, including our own native language. Check records. Any of our civilians here? Checking. Yes, spine leader. There was a group of colonial homesteaders that were spending a couple of weeks here to finish gathering the last few latecomers before they finished their trip and sent all off for. Leaf steeled himself for the probable horrors that he would be facing as he made his way down the corridor towards the school. His HUD lit up with several more outlines, each one confirmed to be a brutally broken harvester corpse. He moved more quickly now, letting his footsteps make real sounds as he wove through the abattoir. The lights along the ceiling were fading in this area, likely due to being smashed with monster heads. He flicked the light on his rifle into place and shined it slowly into the dark corners. The light passed a doorway, and Leaf nearly missed it, bringing his heavily armored hand up to block just in time. A savage guttural roar erupted from a heavy metal pipe slammed into his armor over and over. He barely managed to keep to his feet as he moved backwards. His sudden retreat seemed to confuse the creature before him, at least long enough for Leaf to raise a hand and gesture to stop. Code blue, unknown species, unknown intentions, individual is holding at a distance, activating translation matrices. A series of melodic pings rose from the external speaker. Leaf counted them as primes. The creature glared at Leaf, then shouted something unintelligible. His HUD reported progress on the translation. He had to keep it talking. He gestured to himself, and then he said his name through the speaker. Leaf! Leaf! He gestured to the creature, hoping that it would catch on. It glared at him and raised the pipe slightly higher. No, the Fluffies! The creature shuffled backwards towards the doorway, never taking its eyes off Leaf. Leaf glanced up as motion caught his eye. A rounded corner mirror near the top of the wall showed him the creature's back. Wait! He shouted through a speaker. Both hands gestured outwards towards the creature. It raised its pipe again and yelled, making a partial lunge at Leaf. SL, what are you doing? That thing is clearly a monster. On its back. It's okay, trust me. Leaf held up both hands, gesturing for steadiness. The creature stared intently with fierce, deeply predatory eyes. Leaf pushed down an ancient instinct with everything he had and slowly disengaged his helmet. Spine leader, stop, came the shrinking voice from the headset side as Leaf pulled the helmet free and shook his head slightly, letting his head spines loosen up and spike out towards the cool air in the station. The creatures lowered the pipe slowly. You big Fluffy? Leaf pointed at himself again. Leaf! He pointed to the creature. The creature pointed to the south with the pipe. Jess! It pointed back. Leaf! Fluffy Leaf! Leaf nodded. He tapped his head spines, then held his hands close together. Hopefully this gets through. Jess considered for a moment, then tucked the pipe into a loop in the garments. It stepped forward slowly, never taking its eyes off Leaf, and grabbed the helmet. Leaf, in the primal part of his brain, knew not to make sudden moves. "Saw through human English," the creature shouted into the helmet, then shoved it back to Leaf. Leaf pulled it back on, keeping the visor open. The creature stepped back. Leaf tried talking, surprised to hear the wholly different language coming out of the helmet speaker. "I am Spine Leader Leaf. I was sent here to investigate the harvester attack. Did you do all of this?" He pointed to the ripped and torn bodies of harvesters littering the area near the doorway. "They came for the Fluffies, so I stopped them. The Fluffies are safe." "What are Fluffies? Are you talking about the young creatures on your back?" Jess's eyes flashed with anger. She glanced over her shoulder at the mirror, then quickly grabbed her pipe and threw it, shattering the mirror. "Nobody hurts the Fluffies." "I don't want to hurt, Fluffies. I just..." "Here." Leaf trilled a series of soft sounds from his snout, bypassing the vocalizer. Jess winced slightly as several tiny, spiny heads popped out over her shoulders. Each one trilled a higher-pitched version of the Leaf's own song. Jess visibly relaxed. "I knew. You are a big Fluffy. Take the baby Fluffies home. No Mama Fluffies left." Leaf nodded. "We will get you all off the station. We will get you home as well." Jess whispered over her shoulder, then held her arms forward. 24 babies, each with downy versions of the same spines Leaf had, and all much sharper claws rushed along Jess's arms. Leaf brought his own face closer for their inspection, and they responded by climbing onto him and wrapping their claws around whatever spikes were nearby. "Follow me. We'll get my boarding pod and get back to the ship." Half an hour later, Leaf stood at the observation window of the medical bay, watching the surgical bots tend to Jess's innumerable wounds. Another officer stepped up beside him. "Spine Leader, we finished the analysis of the security logs. In summary, the harvesters came aboard the station and killed almost everyone, but then she saw the younglings were in danger. So she gathered them up on her back, ripped up some metal conduit off the wall, and just started killing every harvester that approached. She made enough noise that they all kept coming from all over the station until she finally just killed them all. And she never once turned her back to any of them." She kept the babies safe." "Yes, Spine Leader. Which brings us to the next point. She's in there right now being put back together by the finest medical technology because her body did not evolve to carry babies with claws and spikes like ours did. Her body never evolved the thicker outer dermis, never evolved the reduced nerve sensitivity in those layers. Nothing. Her skin felt every baby claw and spine like knives being dragged into her back. She must be quite an incredible being then, to endure so much to protect the young." "Sir, yes, sir. But the council is terrified." Leaf turned away from the glass to look at the junior officer in the eye. "Terrified? What could they possibly be terrified of?" "Well, she ignored all the pain and dealt incredible violence out to 24 the most feared species in the galaxy. I saw the videos from our own feeds. She even pushed you back in full offensive armor. The council worries what such a creature would do to protect themselves if they do this much for complete strangers. Tell the council respectfully that spines have grown into their brains if they do not see the good fortune before us. We must send envoys from the entire galactic society to meet with the humans. We absolutely must place them amongst our friends. You said it yourself. If they'd go as far as she did for a stranger, what would they be capable of for a friend?" "The council will object." "Tell them her words, then. Tell them nobody hurts the Fluffies." End of story. There is a new legend on the horizon. Blueberry Cat has taken the T6 Patreon spot. Thank you very much, and I'm sure that I speak for everyone when I say that. For Arnholtz, Bushmaster 177, and Leslie 517, thank you very much.